Hiya! Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery. The first two episodes are out on Netflix in the UK. I've watched both of the first two episodes. I'm going to talk about those in particular, what my thoughts are with regard to the series, whether I'm enjoying this, and how we're going to, let's say, hopefully see things develop with this series in the future. So to give you my background on Trek-related matters, I don't cosplay, but I'm a pretty big fan of everything that is Trek. I've seen all the films and all of the TV shows at least once. My favourite shows are Next Generation, followed probably by Deep Space Nine. Those are my two favourite shows. I'm never massively into Enterprise. Voyager, I thought was very, very hit and miss. And the original series, it's fun for a once through, but since I didn't grow up with it, it doesn't really hold a sort of dear place in my heart. I do love the films, the original films, the Next Generation films, and the new films with J.J. Abrams. I think they all do something slightly different. They bring things that are different into the universe. I really like that about it. Let's say if you're into Trek, you'll know quite a bit about me if I say that my favourite film isn't Khan. My favourite film isn't Generations. It isn't First Contact. Isn't The Voyage Home. My favourite Star Trek film is actually Insurrection, which is basically just a very, very long episode of Next Generation, but with some nice quirky stuff thrown in where we get, let's say, the characters behaving in a more rebellious way to the way they would be doing under the influence of, let's say, the atmosphere of the planet of the Baku. So I really love that film. That's kind of one of the ones that I really gravitated to when I was younger, and Next Generation's always been my thing. Like I said, I do like Deep Space Nine. I think every series has had its good bits, its bad bits. But on the whole, I've certainly never felt like I've struggled to watch a series of anything related to Trek. Now, what I would say about this new series, Star Trek Discovery, is that it feels instantly Trek. It's instantly Star Trek. And that's great. But then some of the worst shows that have been released over the past decades have also felt instantly Star Trek. What I really liked about this is some of the slightly newer things that it brings into the Star Trek world. I really appreciated the attention to detail and the sort of lavishness of the set design, the design of the ships. The interiors were so far ahead of anything you've seen, weirdly enough, they're so far ahead of anything you've seen on the original series, and that's just technology being better today than it was when these series were made in the past. So you give that a buy. You really want them to spend as much as they can on this show, and it does feel like they're spending an awful lot of money on this show. This show doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like they are like they're holding back on their budget. There's far more in space, actually in space, than I've been used to from any Trek series for some time. I mean, mostly it was confined to the bridge, it was confined to specific locations on the ship, whether it's engineering or the medical bay or wherever that happens to be. There was always somewhere where they were, or they go down to a planet. What I love about the show so far is that we haven't been to a planet, and that's fantastic. First two episodes in, and it's just been in space, on the very edges of Federation territory. And I'm not going to go into any particular spoilers about where this show is going. What I will say is that the main character in this show so far is Lieutenant Commander Michael Burnham, who is played by Shaniqua Martin Green. I think she's great in this. In the show, she plays the adopted human daughter of Sarek, Sarek of Vulcan. So essentially, she would be an adoptive sister to Spock. Having said that, they've not mentioned Spock. I think it's interesting that they've chosen Sarek to be the tie-in to the rest of the Star Trek world. I like the fact that they haven't even mentioned Spock yet. I think that's great. I hope they never do. For me, it would be quite Vulcan if Sarek never even mentioned Spock in conversation. Not like they're going to have family conversations about, how everyone gets together. Something we've never actually seen before, which is a human, an orphaned human, raised on Vulcan attended the Vulcan Science Academy, so obviously sort of proved herself in a Vulcan world, and you see how she's clearly evolved. She's clearly over those 7 years become more in touch with her human side, but is still interested or still has a way of looking at things from a purely logical view when needed. She has an emotional side and a logical side. And I thought that was really nicely done. Michelle Yeoh plays Captain Philippa Georgiou, who is captain of the ship, to which Michael Burnham is the lieutenant commander. There's almost a sort of mother-daughter relationship between the two, which I thought was really, really interesting. Michelle Yeoh is obviously a very well-known actress. She's a fantastic actress. It shouldn't be much of a spoiler to know that she's unlikely to play much of a further part through the series, but you know, who knows how that will go after episode 2. In terms of the timeline of Trek, the Klingons obviously at this time were exactly the right kind of enemy to have in the Trek world, given where we are in the sort of Trek through line. Their appearance is very interesting. Obviously, through the various different series, the appearance of Klingons has changed somewhat. There's a very different Klingon appearance from the original series to Enterprise. And then for the 3 series that took place in roughly the same timeline, which is Next Generation, Deep Space Nine and Voyager, Klingons in that world had roughly the same appearance. So for me, it was really interesting to see how they've chosen to depict Klingons. What I thought was fabulous about this is the way it focused not on, it really wasn't on the bloodthirsty aspect, the war aspects. That was a massive part of the depiction of Klingons in this. But it was really fascinating to me how they focused on the cultural aspects. There was a quote in, I think, the 2nd episode about not making the mistake of confusing culture and race. I thought that was fantastic. There's a marvellously subtle little comment that was added into the show, and I thought that was really quite superb. So like I said, the depiction of the Klingons, the way you have this concept of outcast, the 24 great houses, they mention all of the sort of trigger points of Sto-vo-kor, Kahless, etc. These things are referred to, so it feels instantly familiar. And I think that helps ground us, because the appearance of the Klingons is really very different to anything we've seen in any of the shows so far. And I thought that was an interesting choice, a bold choice, and it, again, made it feel new and fresh. Made it feel different, and yet very familiar at the same time. That's a tough line to tread. For me, they're doing a fantastic job of that so far. So my verdict on Star Trek Discovery so far is it's a really compelling series. I was happy clapping like a bit of an idiot a couple of times at certain things that happen in the show. I think the storyline so far has been intriguing. I think it's showing a sort of serialized storyline that we never used to get in the old shows, where the old shows were individual episodes, at best a 2-parter. You know, you got your Wolf 359 type 2-3-parters, etc. But this seems to be following a through narrative in the same way that other shows like, let's say, Daredevil does these days. And I thought that was fresh, new, and I would thoroughly recommend this to anyone. I think if you're looking for the old style, there's enough there for you to get interested. And if you're looking for something that shakes things up a bit and gives a bit of a fresh perspective, there's plenty here to be excited about. Right now, I'd happily say that on the basis of the 2 episodes I've seen so far, and my anticipation, if they maintain this kind of level of storytelling, this level of interest for me, this is definitely going to come in above Voyager and Enterprise in terms of series, as long as it maintains this kind of level. Definitely above Voyager and Enterprise. Thoroughly recommend this, well worth a watch. I'm really looking forward to the rest of it. I'm actually quite liking the weekly format to it, because I imagine I would have binge watched the whole thing by now if it was all available. Having to wait, and you know, it's nice these days to be able to actually wait and watch things on a weekly basis. Have you seen it? What do you think of it? Let me know in the comments down below. Look forward to talking to anyone who's a massive Trek fan. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks very much, and bye! Bye!